upon a time there was truth in journalism, where brave men and women gave voice to the voiceless. But then the corporations bought the journalist, poisoning the news that we are fed. With those tainted sources, all we ever ate was a steady diet of status quo. This hijacked narrative hid the truth of mass suffering, injustice and corruption throughout our land. Status quo, status quo, status quo, status quo. To expose this shift to oligarchy came a band of honest journalists. They left the studio and hit the streets to give the microphone back to the people. From sea to sea, the people were empowered to share their truth. Their voices no longer stifled, reclaimed their power. Join the media revolution now.
Hey there, Jordan Sheridan live on a Tuesday, January 21st, 2020. What am I talking about? Hope everyone having a lovely, lovely day. And boy, is the neoliberal order striking back. Is the oligarchy striking back? I got my light, so we're looking a little better today. And we're starting a little bit earlier. We're gonna see how things work out. Thinking about trying to broadcast. Usually we go live around 5 o'clock Eastern time. We're doing a little experimentation here, so we're gonna go live. Try 4:30 today Eastern time. That's 1:30 Pacific. We might try 4 o'clock Eastern. That's 1 o'clock Eastern. See what happens, because we've been having a little issue where we go live around 5 o'clock Eastern, but then there's so many other channels that go live that too much at once. So we're going to see if we have a little better performance here when less people are live. So hopefully this time works for people. We really appreciate you tuning in. And we got a lot to discuss today. A lot to discuss. Jen is going to be joining the show. We just did an interview, so we have Status Coup co-founder Jen and I talking about Queen Hillary and her pettiness and nastiness. I also have independent journalist Rania Kalik on the show, talking about the military-industrial complex, Facebook and YouTube censorship. So boy, what a show. Already got 240 people watching. So remember, folks, smash that like button into smithereens. Smash it like it's Hillary Clinton telling you she don't like you. Smash it like it's the oligarchy saying they don't like you. Smash it. Smash it. Smash it. The more people that press that thumbs up button that's right under the live stream, the more people that will see the live stream. We got 250 of you watching. 130 of you have pressed like. Need another 100 of you. Smash that like button. Also, consider joining our text alert list. That would be text 474747. Enter COUP so that you could get on our text list. Also follow us at Status Coup. At Status Coup on Twitter. We're live there right now. Follow us on Twitch, twitch.tv/Status Coup. And if you could be so kind, please follow us, our email list by going to statuscoup.com and entering your email there. And joining us now via phone, because I don't understand how Instagram works. Jen, tell people, how can they join us on Instagram, which we're trying to grow as well?
Okay, well, so there's going to be two parts to this. The first part is I need absolutely everybody who has an Instagram account, if you don't make one, and please follow us at instagram.com/statuscoup if you're on desktop. If you're on Instagram, just search Status Coup and find us and follow us, please. Like our content, watch our videos, all that stuff. But there's a really cool thing. So we've been promising we're going to add more stuff for members. So Instagram has a really, really great feature that members can take advantage of, and that is the close friends content. So you guys know Instagram stories, where you can watch everyone's stories when they post. It's all public. But the close friends section, which will be just for members, will have extra behind-the-scenes photos, behind the scenes videos, behind the scenes thoughts. So only members can get access to this close friends content on Instagram. So I will be sending out an email to members to give you instructions on how to get access to that special secret list. But if you're not a member yet, then become one to get access to this close friends list. Go to statuscoup.com/join. If this doesn't make sense, just think of it as just getting tons of bonus content on another platform. Instagram, a lot of Instagram influencers do this, and media channels and stuff like that. So people seem to really enjoy it, and I think it'll be fun for everyone.
So this isn't for acquaintances, only actual friends.
Well, no, all of the Status Coup members are our friends. So
got it.
Become our besties and become a member, and you'll get access to close friends content.
Alrighty. I will see you in a few minutes.
Okay.
Bye-bye. So, thank you. And we are happy to announce, get your emails ready, folks. Get your emails ready. That we have another wonderful viewer who wants to sponsor 10 new members. So with this new sponsorship, sponsoring 10 of you to become new Status Coup members, we are now at 820 Status Coup members. So, for 10 of you who would like to become Status Coup members but just don't have the money, email us. First come, first serve. Email us info@statuscoup.com. That's info@statuscoup.com. First 10 people that send us an email now saying you want to get one of these sponsorships, you will be signed up. Jen, God bless her, will sign you up, and then you'll get a notification that you've been signed up. So first 10, you are going to get a membership paid for a viewer who has been very generous and has been sponsoring some of our members. So, by the way, it's not Jeffrey Katzenberg or George Soros or any of those people. So, sign up. So, before, and by the way, beyond those 10 lucky people, sign up to become a member anyway. That's statuscoup.com/join. We want to get to 900 members by the end of this month. So, we got 80 to go. So, before we get to Hillary and her mischief, I got a bone to pick with Bernie Sanders. Some of you might not like it, but we're not here to, bow down to Bernie. When he's wrong, he's wrong, and he's wrong. So, Bernie Sanders' campaign, I think, probably a couple weeks too late, but better late than never, started more aggressively going after Joe Biden. They started on Twitter. They started on Instagram. They started on television going after Joe Biden. It seems, working. Bernie Sanders was going up in a lot of the polls. Joe Biden wasn't going up. In some of the polls, he was sliding. Then you have Elizabeth Warren, stabbed Bernie Sanders in the front. That took some of the attention off the attacks that Bernie Sanders' campaign was very, very successfully doing against Joe Biden. Bernie had to be distracted for a couple days with this nonsense Warren story, which, by the way, we pointed out on Sundays, a CNN anchor said, literally, well, we can't really know. We can't really know what was said in that room. Yet your network reported it as fact, what was said in that room. But I digress. So, Bernie Sanders' campaign, now even more aggressively, one of their surrogates, Zephyr Teachout, she ran for Attorney General here in New York. She is one of the nation's top experts on corruption. She's an attorney. She has written books about corruption. She is quoted in many stories about corruption. She writes a piece for The Guardian titled "Middle Class Joe Biden Has a Corruption Problem, Makes Him a Weak Candidate." There was nothing in the story that's not factual. You got her pointing out his career was bankrolled by the credit card industry. He delivered for it by spearheading the bankruptcy bill. This is fact. He carried water for the credit card industry. This is fact. Elizabeth Warren, who conspicuously doesn't seem to want to attack Joe Biden during the debates, I wonder why, she entered politics calling out Joe Biden for basically making sweet love to the credit card industry. Healthcare. Zephyr Teachout pointed out that On April 25th of last year, he announced his campaign went straight to a fundraiser hosted by the chief executive of a major health insurance corporation. Then he refused to sign a pledge to reject money from insurance and pharma execs and continues to raise money from healthcare industry donors. All facts. All facts. What did the donors get? A healthcare proposal that preserves the power of the insurance industry and leaves 10 million people uninsured. Then she goes into climate change, pointing out that Biden signed a pledge not to take money from the fossil fuel industry, but he broke that promise. He was having a fundraiser hosted by the founder of a fossil fuel conglomerate. I mean, she just listed 3 examples. There's a lot more examples than that. Honestly, I read it as a journalist who has thrown harder arrows than that. I don't really think this was so terrible. I mean, it's not like honestly, like they didn't go after Biden so hard on the fact that his son is, making $50,000 a month on a board that he had no business being on. They didn't go after Biden for his brother making a lot of money off of the Biden name. They didn't go after Biden for a whole lot of other things, but it was all factual. But of course, oh no, you go after Joe Biden, it's one thing to go after him on Social Security, but to call a member of the Democratic corporate establishment elite corrupt, to do so? Oh no, you don't. Oh no, you don't. So, we got 460 people watching. 251 of you have pressed that like button. Can I get over 200 more of you? Please press the thumbs up button right under the video. Makes a big difference. Press that thumbs up button right under the video. So, of course, the Democratic establishment is not happy about this. You are not allowed to talk about somebody's record. You are not allowed to talk about policy. You are not even allowed to point out that accepting bribes and then doing the bidding of the special interests that you are accepting the bribes for is corruption. Because the corporate media does not see that as corruption. Because they are so content and complacent with the corruption. So, you have Paul Krugman. He didn't like this at all. This is a really bad look. It illustrates everything that makes many Democrats distrust the Sanders team. And the buck stops with the candidate. How dare you? By the way, this wasn't even officially the Sanders campaign. Zephyr Teachout is a surrogate. She doesn't work on the campaign. So, Paul Krugman, how dare you? Don't you dare call out corruption of accepting bribes. Mark Murray of NBC News, the day before the Senate impeachment trial against Trump begins, the Bernie Sanders campaign circulates this op-ed attack on Joe Biden. Oh, such an attack. Meanwhile, I never heard any of these people criticizing other campaigns, pointing out that, Bernie Sanders has said favorable things about the Soviet Union or about Nicaragua, or that Bernie Sanders, is quote unquote friend of Russia. I never heard any of these people calling that out. Did you? But Bernie Sanders campaign, thank you, Status Coup, getting us started. This is a super chat. Keep it coming in the super chat. $2. I'm feeling super. I didn't see any of these people pointing any of this out. It's so interesting. And then Bernie Sanders' campaign goes on MSNBC. Here's Brianna Joy, his press secretary, who I actually like. Basically, NBC was aghast that they would dare call Joe Biden corrupt.
Oh, il est tout près de moi, mon homme. Il est tout à moi, je suis tout à lui. C'est lui, c'est l'homme de ma vie.
Thank you so much for coming in, and we will keep on top of this. We'll try to make sense of the caucuses. Joining me now is the National Press Secretary for the Sanders campaign, Brianna Joy Gray. Brianna, thank you so much for being here. So Sanders can't be on the trail starting tomorrow, and it looks like they're going to be 12-hour days. He had a rally scheduled for Wednesday night in Iowa. Is he still going to be able to make that?
I'm not sure if the plans have been set for worst in Iowa right now. Healthcare, right? Iowa voters overwhelmingly say that healthcare is the number one concern. And poll after poll after poll, we're talking to people who are really suffering from
campaign, well documented, well talked about at this point. But Mr. Sanders' speechwriter promoted an op-ed today in The Guardian written by a surrogate that said Joe Biden had a, quote, corruption problem. Do you believe that's fair? And do you believe that mirrors the president's attacks on Joe Biden, especially in this moment as the impeachment trial gets started?
I think that one of the most important contrasts to draw with Joe Biden, and again, one of the things we hear the most about when we're talking to actual Iowa voters and voters across this country is Social Security. And I think it is fair to really scrutinize at this point what Joe Biden's record has been. Are you saying he's corrupt
on Social Security?
No, what I'm saying is that repeatedly over the past 40 years of his career, he has had no hesitation to make efforts to cut Social Security, to raise the retirement age.
What about the corruption
and this is a
problem?
Conversation.
What about saying he has a corruption problem?
I think that how you characterize that is up to the voter, and that's fine for them to decide. But what's important is for us to have a conversation on TV, not about conflict between
what does
candidates.
That mean to let the voter decide about a corruption problem? Because your speechwriter is promoting this op-ed that's written by a surrogate that says Joe Biden has a corruption problem, and I'm just not. Is that a campaign sanctioned thing? Does the campaign believe that Joe Biden has a corruption problem?
What the article is describing is the fact that Joe Biden has made deals with Republicans repeatedly over the course of his career in order to cut Social Security and to raise the retirement age.
Corrupt?
And if someone wants to describe that as corrupt, that is up to them. But what I'm saying right now is that instead of trying to instigate disputes between candidates on
I'm not
semantics,
instigating it. It was written in The Guardian and promoted by your speechwriter.
That's
it's not
fair
me. I'm just asking you about it.
But I think the core issue, especially right.
So, first of all, let's just point out the obvious here. It is inherently corrupt that MSNBC, owned by Comcast, who the first fundraiser that Joe Biden did after launching his campaign, was with Comcast. It is inherently corrupt that MSNBC, while talking about Joe Biden, does not disclose that its parent company is the top lobbyist, by the way, for Comcast, is doing lavish fundraisers for Joe Biden. That is corrupt. Thank you for the super chat. Denise Hartle, $24.99. This what the surrogates are for. They could say what Bernie cannot. The info is out there, and then Bernie say, oh, I'm sorry because the man is held to a different standard. All that I heart is on the line. I trust the campaign. God bless you for the $24.99, but I don't agree. I'll tell you why. A.R. Frances, thanks for your work, Status Coup. The news is so sickening. $5. Thank you so much for the kind amount. Florida fly fishing, $2. Your work is important. Biden corruption is okay. Dare I say something? And I like Brianna. I'm not criticizing her. But why are we so worried about just saying, yeah, there is issues with corruption and Joe Biden? Why can't Bernie Sanders' campaign say that? Why can't they just simply say the American people are sick of the corruption in Washington where candidates or senators or presidents like Joe Biden take money from insurance, the credit card industry, the healthcare industry, and then propose legislation favored to those industries? There's different levels of corruption, right, folks? You can have corruption that is, mafia corruption. You could have corruption that is, among oligarchs. Or you could just have your bottom of the barrel average corruption like the United Corporations of America, where legalized bribes is how our country works. I don't understand. Why can't the Bernie Sanders campaign don't go halfway, go all the way and say, yeah, there's corruption problems. You might. I would say to the anchor, you might not find it corrupt to take massive millions of dollars from the credit card companies and the healthcare industry and the fossil fuel industry and then turn around and offer favorable legislation that they like. Maybe to you that's not corrupt, but to the American people, that's very corrupt. I don't understand. You're not saying Joe Biden is the devil. You're not saying that Joe Biden is evil. And by the way, put aside Donald Trump and how he is as president. Put aside Donald Trump and how, he's obviously corrupt himself. But you know what was so effective for Donald Trump during the 2016 campaign? He didn't equivocate. He turned to Rubio and said, you're going to choke. He turned to Cruz and said, you're a liar. Turned to this one and said, you're corrupt. He cleared the House in the Republican primary. I'm not saying Bernie Sanders needs to imitate Donald Trump. Bernie Sanders has integrity. He's got class, all these things. But if you are running for a political revolution, let's start talking like revolutionaries. This is corruption. MSNBC, they don't want to talk about the merits of that article that Zephyr Teachout wrote. Of course not. They don't want to talk about the details of Biden's record. They just want to wrap themselves and Paul Krugman and these other people and, Bernie Sanders does this a day before the impeachment. Bernie Sanders, not being a team player. There's 2 weeks before the Iowa caucus. There is an anti-establishment fervor in this country. You have beyond things. The list is so long of things they could go after Biden on. I mean, this story came out a couple days ago. I haven't heard Bernie's campaign bring this up. Joe Biden literally joked. I don't even know if it was a joke. That he told Bush, you deserve the Nobel Peace Prize if you could make your Iraq war. You remember the war that Joe Biden says he didn't actually vote for? That you could, if you make Iraq quick and easy, you deserve the Nobel Peace Prize. Again. This is from the Huffington Post. 17 years after the invasion of Iraq, the war remains a live wire for many voters, blah, 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 blah. But Biden has been distancing himself from his vote, making it seem like he was against the endeavor. So, but Ari Fleischer, Bush's press secretary at the time, in his 2005 book, wrote, a 2002 meeting at the White House where the president asked congressional leaders for support for a resolution of force against Iraq. He recounted an exchange between Bush and a Democratic senator. Ooh, who was this Democratic senator? And that Democratic senator said, if you can get it done without staying, we'll give you the Nobel Peace Prize. Well, the New York Times' Peter Baker used the same anecdote for his 2014 book and noted that he confirmed Biden was that senator. So, literally, Joe Biden is going around saying, well, no, the vote for military authorization wasn't actually to go to war. 6 months before that, he's palling around with George W. in the White House saying you deserve a Nobel Peace Prize if you make this illegal, immoral war quick. Are you kidding me? Why isn't Bernie Sanders' campaign using this? I don't understand this, and I'm not really blaming his campaign aides because it starts from the top. It starts from the top. And some of you might say, oh, it's, let his campaign people do it. And then Bernie, can be above the fray. Well, when his campaign people are doing it, Bernie then comes out and apologizes to Biden for that Zephyr Teachout op-ed. Quote, whether or not Biden is, what did he say? Whether or not Biden, Sanders told CBS, it is absolutely not my view that Joe Biden is corrupt in any way, and I'm sorry the op-ed appeared. Well, if it's not your view that Joe Biden's corrupt, it's not going to be the view of voters considering you versus Joe Biden. And I don't understand. I really don't. It's inconsistent with what Bernie Sanders has been talking about for 40 years. Of course, he thinks Joe Biden taking money from special interests and then writing legislation basically that they write for him and pushing it through is corrupt. But why can't he say it is the question. I mean, this is a major, major problem. And if he loses, it's because Bernie Sanders, for whatever reason, could never just take off the gloves and keep them off and just go for the jugular. And by the way, Joe Biden, after Bernie Sanders apologizes to Joe Biden, just like Bernie Sanders, was diplomatic to Elizabeth Warren, then she shanks him. She stabs him in the front. Then he goes to march with her holding hands. I mean, some could say, Jordan, that's a good thing. It makes him look good after Warren did that. After Bernie Sanders apologizes to Joe Biden's his campaign is sending out on their text list, Bernie Sanders' campaign has unleashed a barrage of negative attacks, lying about and distorting Joe's record. They're even pushing around a deceptively edited video, no they're not, and saying that Biden agreed with Paul Ryan about wanting to cut Social Security. Yes, he did. The attack is 100% false, but with only 13 days until the Iowa caucuses, smears like this could have dire repercussions. We need to make sure we have the resources. We need to fight back and elect Joe. So, Andrew, can you chip in right now? And by the way, I don't know if any of you brought yourself to sign up for Joe Biden's email list. I'm signed up for all the candidates, so I see how desperate they are. There is not one other candidate, not Bernie, not Warren, not Pete, not Klobuchar. Biden's campaign has sent out, and Jen, I'm sure you get them too. I think I've seen at least 10 emails in the last 48 hours from Joe Biden's campaign asking for $5. This is not a campaign that has the funding they need. He's going around the country, Wall Street banks, financial law firms, fossil fuel execs, real estate execs, healthcare execs, taking their money, champagne, caviar, but he still doesn't have the money. I have literally seen at least 8 to 10 emails in the last 48 hours from Joe Biden's campaign begging for money. They are desperate because their internal polling is probably showing worse than the public polling going out there in Iowa. This is not the time to be apologizing. This is the time to be doubling and tripling down. You want to be nice and diplomatic? Do it when you're president, Bernie. Right now, you're in a street fight for the presidency. As I'm about to show you, as Jen's reporting is about to show you, it's very likely that Elizabeth Warren's campaign is working with Hillary Clinton and her people to shank Bernie Sanders. It's very likely that Obama people are working with the Biden campaign to shank you. And they have the entire corporate media wrapped around their fingers. So instead of apologizing for a corruption expert pointing out, yeah, Joe Biden's got a corruption problem, you should say, well, up to the viewer. It's up to the voters, but I think Joe Biden should have to answer for, the legislation that he proposed that was very much aligned with the same special interests he was taking money from. He needs to answer for that, and it's up to the American people whether that's corrupt. But in my view, it is corrupt to be taking money from the very industries that we're supposed to be regulating and then proposing legislation that favors them. End of story. And we got 700 people watching. 420 of you have pressed that like button. We need another 300 people. Press the thumbs up button. Press that thumbs up button. Makes a huge, huge difference. And keep the super chats coming. So, now that we've established, I don't know what to tell you. Bernie Sanders, just what are you doing? What are you doing? So I want Jen to join me. We did an interview before. We're trying to figure out how she could come on live too. But for now, we did an interview. But obviously you've seen this. Hillary Clinton, she came out a month and a half before her documentary even premieres. Interesting that Hillary Clinton decides to push out her interview with the Hollywood Reporter now, instead of right before her documentary on Hulu comes out. Usually when you want to promote a movie, a documentary, you do it the week of the movie or documentary. Hillary Clinton had to push this out now. I wonder why. She told Hulu Bernie was in Congress for years. He had one senator support him. Nobody likes him. Nobody wants to work with him. He got nothing done. He was a career politician. It's all just baloney. And I feel so bad the people got sucked into it. That assessment still hold? She was asked. Yes, it does. If he gets the nomination, will you endorse his campaign? Remember, folks, blue no matter who. Remember, unity. I'm not going to go there yet. We're still in a very vigorous primary season. Oh, I'm not going to go there yet. Well, Jen and I are going to go there. Thank you, Kelly Elaine, $20 in the super chat. Thank you, Jaybird D, $19.99. This is ridiculous. I just don't get it. Bernie, if you could say that Joe friggin' Biden is corrupt, if you can't say that Joe friggin' Biden is corrupt and instead conveyed that Zephyr Teachout's op-ed was mistaken, then what the hell are we even doing here? Gewalt. I agree. And that is what Jen and I discussed a little bit earlier. I hope you enjoy. Keep the super chats coming. I'll read them on the flip side. Hey, it's Jordan and Jen, bringing her in from Maryland. Let me tell you, let's do this a little differently. I mean, we could trash, we could trash Hillary Clinton till we're blue in the face, and I enjoy it. But to me, let's talk about the why this is all happening, because Hillary Clinton's interview with the Hollywood Reporter to promote a series that's coming out on Hulu about her. I assume Hillary Clinton's people determine when the Hollywood Reporter publishes that.
Oh, of course.
So I don't really know when I think her documentary on Hulu's, it's not coming out like imminently, is it?
I think it's in March, yeah. March 6th or something like that.
Right. So there's plenty of time for pre-documentary promotion and stuff. So why is it that this is coming out now? Could it be that Bernie Sanders is in a much stronger position than he was against her in 2016? Could it be that he's getting all of these endorsements from SEIU's New Hampshire chapter, local progressive groups in Nevada? Obviously, he's gotten endorsements in Iowa. Can it be that Joe Biden is finally, even though Bernie, continues this mealy mouse nonsense, now apologizing to Joe Biden for the temerity to call him corrupt, but Joe Biden is finally, there's some attention being served to his record. All of a sudden, Hillary Clinton puts this out there. I mean, obviously it's a lot of hot air, nobody likes him. Yeah, nobody in your bourgeoisie likes him. But to me, it seems strategic. A Warren's thing didn't quite work out. Now they're trying, resurrecting Hillary.
Yeah, I mean, the timing is, I think there's no question about it. The timing is very coordinated and very orchestrated and very purposeful. So Hillary Clinton's no political dummy. I mean, well, in certain ways, she definitely is, but she's also very calculated and she knows exactly what she's doing. Her team knows exactly what they're doing. And this article, it's infuriating. Right. And the upcoming series.
Well, let me ask you, it seems that if a progressive were to say, or Bernie were to say, like, let's not deal with whether we're going to endorse the nominee later on. Let's not deal with that. We'll get to that later. If a progressive would say that and, basically dog whistle that they might not endorse Bernie, right, the House would be on fire, establishment would be screaming. But Hillary Clinton says it. And when Hillary Clinton says it, by the way, it's not just Hillary Clinton saying it. She and Bill still represent a lot of the party. So that's basically opening up the floodgates for more people to kind of be like, well, maybe not. I guess unity and vote blue no matter who isn't really a thing. That's just a shield for...
Well, it never has been for these Hillary people. Everyone will remember the Pumas, party unity my ass. That was the Hillary crowd. That was the Nira crowd. They don't actually care about unity. They don't actually care about beating Donald Trump as long as it means they can get one over on Bernie. I actually found it really interesting. Tommy Vitor of Pod Save America, I have a lot of thoughts on them, but to his credit, he actually tweeted earlier about this particular point, saying this is inexcusable. If Bernie wins the nomination, we all need to work our asses off to help him win. If someone else is the nominee, we all do the same for them. Don't kick up this bullshit right before Iowa, especially after complaining about Bernie's lack of support in 2016. And so this was in response to, I believe it was a CNN write-up on this particular case, on this Hillary Clinton documentary and Hollywood Reporter interview. Tommy was actually an Obama staffer. So for him to come out and say this, I think that kind of is good. It takes some guts. And I think he's a little bit more progressive than some of the other pod save people. But then Nick Merrill, Clinton's staffer, I believe that he's still on her payroll. I don't know, Jordan, check me if I'm wrong on that or if you remember.
Yes.
So I think he's actually still her official spokesperson. But so he quote tweeted Tommy Vitor and said, "She said yet. She has repeatedly made clear that she isn't committing to any candidate as the primary plays out. And more than anyone in the world, she has shown time and time again that she puts Democrats and our democracy above all else." Give me a break. Yeah,
Well,
literally, as you say, if anyone else did this.
She was specifically asked about the general election, so.
Yes.
Right. And by the way, Jen just demonetized us, so swear jar for the BS.
By saying ass?
BS.
Oh, no.
That's okay. So, bottom line with Hillary Clinton and all this, I just find it very interesting because it kind of shows something beyond Bernie Sanders. You have the New York Times, who is is the largest media outlet in the world. As far as I can tell, they're bigger than CNN. They're, internationally well regarded. They endorse two people, Warren and Klobuchar, and I'm going to get into this later, that could, in total, have less than 10% of the black vote. Klobuchar is not above 10% in any of the early states. And they call Elizabeth Warren's politics, quote, radical, which is almost like, oh, see, we're doing both. We're going with the radical. We're going with the radical folks, but we're also with the pragmatists. So they are completely out of step, not just with policy, because Elizabeth Warren's policies are not radical, not even close, but they're out of step with America. America, definitely, the American voters definitely are not in bulk supporting Amy Klobuchar. Warren's doing better in the polls, but she's not doing better. I'm not saying they should have endorsed Joe Biden, but they are out of step with the working class, even their own readers. A poll just came out showing those polled specifically asked if you read the New York Times, it was Biden and Bernie among New York Times readers. Warren was in third. So you got one bucket of mostly white, affluent, out of touch New York Times editorial board. And they made it this very melodramatic, suspenseful. We got to wait all day Sunday till your endorsement on a documentary show. Like they have such high self-importance that this was so important. So we have this out of touches on one end, and then Hillary Clinton saying that the most popular politician in America, who has the highest favorability ratings, has the most donations, that nobody likes him. Well,
right.
What is the New York Times and Hillary Clinton talking about? Because they seem to not realize that the majority of the people are supporting Bernie.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and as far as I can tell, so I looked at the latest Gallup poll for Hillary Clinton's favorability. And so this was in 2018, September of 2018. Her favorability was at 36% then. I can't imagine it's gone higher. I mean, it tends to be that she gets more sympathy as time gets away from the election, but 36%. Bernie Sanders, on the other hand, is the most popular. Yeah, and actually Gallup came out with this too, that Bernie Sanders is the Democratic Party's most liked 2020 presidential nominee. 72% of respondents have a favorable view of Bernie. So nobody likes Bernie, Hillary. I think you might have that a bit twisted.
It's upstairs. So what's really incredible to me about all this is, obviously, if Warren's stuff didn't work and now Hillary's coming out, Hillary Clinton's not just doing this in isolation. She obviously told the Hollywood Reporter, put this out now. The documentary series isn't until March, so she wanted it out now. So it seems like they're trying to rally the kind of woke back mountain, as I like to call it, troops. And if this doesn't work, I think they're going to pivot to the communist stuff, which Biden is preparing. I mean, they already have what Bernie has said about Fidel Castro and the Soviet Union. Terrible, terrible things he has said. And I think they're going to use that before Iowa, too. So it just seems to me like they're trying everything possible to not actually talk about records. They're trying to not even talk about what is bad about Medicare for all. They're trying not to talk about what is bad about free public college or a Green New Deal. They don't want to talk about the records. They just want to talk about this nonsense. And by the way, I hope Bernie Sanders wakes the fuck up because he's now apologizing to Joe Biden. Well, as I write this, he apologized publicly to Joe Biden, which makes him look weak. And Joe Biden is sending out text alerts and emails to his people. I'll read it to you. Basically doubling down on attacking Joe Biden, attacking Bernie Sanders. It's madness. I don't know why Bernie Sanders. I don't even want to hear, oh, he's a nice guy. This is bad. No, you're acting like an idiot. This is what Joe Biden campaign is texting Biden headquarters. Bernie Sanders' campaign has unleashed a barrage of negative attacks, lying about and distorting Joe's record. They're even pushing around a deceptively edited video and saying he agreed with Paul Ryan about wanting to cut Social Security. They keep tripling down on this deceptively edited video that in itself is a lie. They're saying lying about and distorting Joe's record, but they don't say what is the distortion. Did you not say these things about Social Security? And I like that Bernie's campaign is on message, but how about we get in there the bankruptcy bill too? How about we get in there voting for Glass-Steagall repeal? How about we get in there deregulating derivatives? Yes, we got the Iraq War, Patriot Act. Am I missing anything? Bernie, I don't know. He continues to carry his spoon in a knife fight. And I know you're a more, lovey-dovey person than I am, but I hope even you is like, enough, Bernie. Don't apologize.
No, yeah,
attack.
When you texted me this, whenever it happened, my timeline is off. I think it was last night or something, and I was furious because, for one thing, Zephyr Teachout wrote that. She's a corruption expert. She's not just pulling this out of thin air. There's, facts are in her piece. It was a very well done, in my opinion, piece. It wasn't based on nothing. It wasn't based on just false smears or anything like that. It was true. These are his corrupt ties. He has an affinity for corruption that's been shown over his career. And then I believe it also went out in the Byrne Report, which is, I think David Sirota, holds the reins there, where it's this newsletter that they put out via Substack. But he also, David Sirota had linked to Zephyr's article. Everything seemed okay. Of course, people were raising a fuss about it. But then when Bernie, went against it, I was shocked. And it did upset me for sure. And I think these people are going to keep attacking him. They're not acting in good faith. I don't want to go too far away from the topic at hand, which is Miss Hillary. But as I said, they're not coming from a good place. In the same article, they asked her the question, speaking of Hollywood, with his trial in the news right now, do you have regrets about your lengthy association with Harvey Weinstein? And so her answer, right after she's smearing Bernie Sanders left and right and calling him terrible, oh, Harvey Weinstein, how could we have known? He raised money for me, blah, blah, blah. Of course, if we had known, it would have affected our behavior. So she doesn't come out, talking about how terrible he is, how awful that is. She's like, oh, I couldn't have known. Not my problem. So it's striking to me who they choose to attack. And Bernie needs to stand up for himself in certain ways. And in this case, I think he didn't have to bring anything up. He could have just let it go, let people get mad. It wasn't really making that huge of a splash. So I was really surprised that he came out, against Zephyr's piece.
I want to preview, you're not done with it yet, but you're working on something that shows Elizabeth Warren's campaign, which frankly, has the political instincts of Hillary Clinton's campaign. No wonder she has a lot of Hillary people in her campaign. So I thought maybe it wasn't originally Warren's idea to plant this story with CNN. Maybe she had her Clinton campaign people who are now working on her campaign telling her hey, let's shank Bernie on the identity, sexist politics stuff. But I don't think people realize how many Hillary Clinton campaign people are on her campaign. Also, a lot of Obama people. It doesn't, they're not all awful, but there's a lot of overlap here. Bernie does not have a lot of Hillary Clinton people on his campaign.
Right. Yeah. So that's one of the things that I'm working on is the connection between who Elizabeth Warren is surrounding herself with. And it's a heck of a lot of Hillary people. And so I'm a big believer in you kind of become who you surround yourself with. And so if you have these political operatives that operate in the Hillary Clinton style, that's going to be kind of what you do. I mean, what Elizabeth Warren did was very Hillary-esque. It was straight out of her playbook. And in fact, that's something that gets asked of Hillary in this article too, about this smear. And she basically backs it up and is like, yeah, that was totally right. Bernie's, he said I was unqualified in 2016 and this and that. So it seems very clear that Elizabeth Warren, whether or not she was ever, good of heart, she's definitely taking from the Hillary campaign playbook, which is not a great idea, seeing as how she has lost, her races for president.
And remember, folks, smash that like button. The more people that press the like button, it's a thumbs up button right under the video, the more people that will see our very live stream. If you want to support Jen and I to get both of us out in the field, we are at 820 members right now. Our goal for the end of the month, very bold, 900. So that would be, I can't do math, 80 more of you. Need to sign up, statuscoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 a month. Jen and I have another members call that we're going to do next week, our second of the month. Well, I don't know, Jen. We might have some news for our members at the end of this month based on the shenanigans we're dealing with behind the scenes.
Will we?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I don't know which thing you're talking about.
Too many things. So our members... Yeah. The last members call was super TMI. So lastly, no one's covering this as usual, but April, the Flint water crisis turned 6. We have nobody has been charged. All charges have been dropped. The last charges were dropped against the former state of Michigan water drinking chief who was charged by the former special prosecutor in the criminal investigation, but the new attorney general, she's been in office for a year, they dropped all of the charges last year, and the statute of limitations for even charging new people any charges related to the Flint water crisis related to misconduct in office. So there can be no more charges related to the Flint water crisis as of April. When I say no more charges, specifically misconduct in office charges. So really, everything's been dropped. The new attorney general, the new prosecutors that came in last year say that they are working on new evidence, this and that. And people in Flint are still, drinking out of bottled water that they're not being provided by the state. They have to pay for it out of their own wallets. Most of them don't have the money for that. So a lot of them have returned to drinking out of the tap. Although the media has long forgotten, you and I have been on this, there's still problems with the water. We have met people still having rashes and other issues related to drinking and showering. So it's not a good situation there. In a, I guess, minor victory for the people of Flint, the U.S. Supreme Court today rejected state of Michigan and city of Flint officials. They were trying to get the Supreme Court to basically look at their arguments for being immune. So having immunity so that there could be no charges brought against them from Flint residents on civil rights violations. The U.S. Supreme Court on Tuesday let residents of Flint pursue a civil rights lawsuit against the city and government officials that accused them of knowingly allowing the city's water supply to be contaminated with lead. The justices turned away 2 appeals by the city and the state and local officials of a lower court ruling that allowed the lawsuit to move forward. The lower court rejected a demand for immunity by the officials, finding that they violated the residents' right to, quote, bodily integrity under the U.S. Constitution by providing the tainted water after switching water sources in a cost-cutting move in 2014. I'll give you my thoughts in a minute. What do you think about this, Jen?
Well, I think it's a win, kind of a very small feeling win. I mean, maybe it'll lead to good things. It's still not for sure that it will. And I know that the people of Flint feel like, they'll have these victories, but then ultimately it doesn't actually lead to anything. Like with the finally they'd gotten charges through, Todd Flood, special prosecutor, had gotten charges through, but now they're all dropped. So it's like their hopes, the people of Flint, their hopes go up, and then they go right back down because of what happened. So I'm hopeful. I mean, this sounds positive. It's good that they're going to be able to move forward with, suing the people who are responsible for their illnesses and deaths.
I actually think it's bigger than just Flint because this creates precedent for other
True.
places too. So if no criminal charges are going to be brought, and that's a whole nother debate. I mean, the former prosecutor, if you don't know the Flint water criminal back and forth, there was a special prosecutor appointed. Think of like a Robert Mueller. They had like a Robert Mueller that was separate from the government who was brought in to try the cases. He ended up, him and his team charged 15 state and city of Flint officials, and two of the highest ones, the head of the state health department and the chief medical officer of the state, were bound over after a year pretrial, which is very abnormal to have that long of a pretrial. A judge ruled that those two officials would be bound over to face a jury trial. So, seemed like he was being effective. A new attorney general came in, fired that special prosecutor, his lead investigators, and then months later dropped all of the remaining charges. They essentially said this special prosecutor and his team missed a lot of things and screwed up some things. And as a result, we need to drop all of the charges, but that won't stop us from pressing new charges. That was, at this point, that was in June. So you're talking almost a year ago. No new charges have been brought since then. And again, the statute of limitations runs out in April for new charges. State officials in the state legislature are trying to get that statute of limitations extended from 6 years, April is 6 years, to 10 years to give them more time. But the Republicans in the state legislature in Michigan don't seem to be playing ball. But to me, if no criminal charges are going to be brought, which frankly is a complete miscarriage of justice, at the very least, this would allow not just for Flint residents, but residents that have other, there's water problems all over America that I think we cover more than anyone, for them to go the same route of their constitutional right to no bodily harm, according to this language, to sue for civil rights violations, because a lot of these cases are happening in predominantly black and brown communities. So it is a small victory for Flint. Who knows? Maybe a new court will be created above the Supreme Court to repeal this. But we're still in communications with residents in Flint. We're still doing some follow-ups. And yeah, it's really, really, it says a lot about this country that 6 years later, many deaths that have not even been reported as related to the Flint water crisis. When Jen and I reported there 2 years ago, you remember this, Jen, there's not a block we went by because we were knocking on doors looking into the water testing that we weren't told like, oh yeah, they just died recently. And not like 85-year-olds, like people in their 40s, 50s, from cancers and these kind of things that were just going all over Flint. I don't think it was because of the weather.
Right.
So,
well, that's the thing. It breaks my heart every time I continue to see this. 12 people were killed due to the water crisis, due to Legionnaires. The number is way higher than that, and it's just so frustrating to see that number in print over and over again. I know that's the only officially recognized number, but PBS Frontline did a good investigation on this. I mean, as Jordan said, you walk around downtown in Flint, there's nobody there. They're all gone, dead or sick, immobile. Some of the people we've known for years in Flint now have to, be interviewed from their bed because they're so sick. And also in this New York Times article about this, it struck me that the number of reported illnesses in Flint is 25,000. So that on its own, because this is a city of 100,000, built for 300,000, by the way. So for 25,000 people to have reported that they're sick is a lot. I mean, that's a quarter. But think about the number of people who, in this very poor city, don't have the means to go register themselves as ill or as sick, or that their family member died because of this. So the number is way, way higher. It's absolutely devastating when you think of the numbers of people. And it's not just the numbers. It's not just the data or the stats. These are people. These are lives. And yeah, I would say every other door we knocked on, someone would say, oh yeah, 9 people in this block died since the water crisis. Well, that stuff's not being reported. So yeah, we're very passionate about this. So this small win hopefully will lead to something.
Can we talk about why should people sign up as members? We're at 820 members right now. I think we got some momentum here. We just passed 67,000 subscribers on YouTube. Marcus is doing some, honestly, I don't see many other outlets in the trenches like we are in Iowa. Thanks to you guys and the funding you've provided. I'll be going up to New Hampshire probably for a week to 2 weeks to focus on the New Hampshire primary. Basically, like now, I'll be going up after the Iowa caucus. So why should people sign up and support us?
Well, I always like to talk about this from a couple of angles. So the first angle is that you are the reason. So we talk about, big stories we have coming out that we can't quite reveal yet, but it's one of the biggest stories of the last, I don't know, several decades. I don't know. I'm very close to it, but it's a major, major story. And if it weren't for you guys funding us and being members, we wouldn't have been able to go and break this story in the way that we are. And it's, we're so thankful because we hope that this story will lead to some justice for some important people. And as you see with Marcus, as you see with Jordan, we are able to get out there and report where no one else is. Marcus is freelancing for us in Iowa, as Jordan mentioned, and amazing stuff. He's getting in there. He's getting in the press gaggles. He's when Black Lives Matter, Indiana, or I don't know if it's Black Lives Matter South Bend. Okay. Yeah, so Black Lives Matter South Bend, when they interrupted the Pete Buttigieg rally, Marcus got in his car in the snow. It's very snowy there, apparently, and was able to interview those Black Lives Matters members immediately. No one else is doing that stuff. So when you support us, when you become a member, that's the kind of reporting that you are supporting. We are out there to give the microphone back to the people. We have a lot of stuff in store, a lot of planned trips, with the campaign. That's obviously a huge, huge focus. Some other things in the works as well. So that's one angle. You are supporting real reporting. We are funded by you, for you. We don't have big corporate sponsors. Jeffrey Katzenberg isn't knocking down our door. Nothing like that. The other part of it is you get really cool stuff.
Wait. Does he fund any other networks?
I don't know, Jordan. Let's not talk about that. Some networks that you may be familiar with. So yeah, the other part of this is that you get amazing stuff. I mean, you get great perks as a member. You get behind the scenes video diaries, behind the scenes photos and videos, extra reporting that we won't release elsewhere. And actually, with the big story we have coming out, we plan to put extra reporting there just for members that won't be in the outlet that we are, working with. So lots of great stuff. Monthly member calls. This month we're doing 2 member calls where we all get on Zoom, totally free for you. You can be on camera, or not, whatever you want. And you get to talk with Jordan and me. And we have a great time. We divulge way too much info. And we're going to be adding more perks as time goes on. We want you to really feel a part of the Coup community. So yeah, join. I mean, it's only at the lowest amount, or the lowest join rate of price is $5 a month. So obviously, if that's not in your budget, do not, stress yourself out. Just share our stuff. But if $5 a month or $10 a month or $20 or $179 annually is in your budget, know that you'll be funding good, important reporting. We are in this for for a reason. And there's no one else doing it like we are, to be very honest. And you'll get stuff that no one else gets to see. So definitely join statuscoup.com/join.
Thank you, Jen. See you back in the super chat.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Wonderful Jen Dyes. Wonderful Jen Dyes, co-founder of Status Coup, president of Status Coup. We're going to try to get her in the show more. So thank you to Jen for doing that. And let me go to the wonderful little list she's been writing me so I don't miss any super chats. Silver Surfer, $10 in the super chat. I am a retiring winning campaigner. I am a retiring winning campaigner. If Bernie attacks Warren or Biden, he will not win, period. We need to get Warren and Biden voters after both of them lose Iowa and New Hampshire to Bernie. God bless you for the $10. Completely disagree. All I got to do is show you 2008. Hillary Clinton and Obama was one of the nastiest campaigns in recent history. At the end of the day, they all came together just fine. So Bernie Sanders going after Joe Biden, I don't think he needs to go after Elizabeth Warren as hard because I think that would have more negatives and not as much positives. Bernie Sanders does not have a lot of potential to pick off Elizabeth Warren supporters because unlike what the corporate media has been selling, Elizabeth Warren supporters are not really progressives. They're Hillary Clinton supporters. They're Pete Buttigieg supporters. They're not working class voters. So Bernie needs to keep focus on Biden. But you might say, well, if he goes too hard, they won't join him later. I just disagree. I think if Bernie wins, you go after him now, they'll come together later. It'll be just fine. And let those Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Obama people say with a straight face, we're not supporting the Democratic nominee against Trump. After forever, they've been saying, no matter what, we got to beat Trump. I let them be on the defensive if that's the route they decided to go. Jaybird, $14.99 in the super chat. Hillary Clinton is a jaundiced gorgon. Can't she just retreat into her gilded lair already and let us all be? Bernie needs to dropkick all of these craven miscreants once and for all. I love it. Thank you. D-Style Boxing, $2. After Bernie campaigned hard for her in 2016 too. Well, don't tell anyone about that because apparently Bernie didn't do anything for her. He only went around for her 40 events all over the country. I know. I covered quite a few of them, and I was nauseous watching this. But don't let facts get in the way of a good narrative. Silver Surfer, $5 in the super chat. My bet is the message, quote, Biden proposed Social Security cuts is what is moving focus groups. Couldn't agree more, and that's why I think they're going after. I think they're going after Bernie so hard, and the media is joining Biden in doing this because I think Biden's internal polling numbers probably show him doing worse in Iowa than the public polling is showing. Hello Soul, $5 in the super chat. Thanks for all you do, Jordan. Real progressives appreciate it. Karen, $1.49 in the super chat. Thank you so much. Dylan Patton, $5 in the super chat. Owe you to an email. We'll touch base soon. Just wanted to say hi to you both. Everyone else too. Smash that like button, folks. Hashtag Bernie 2020. Hashtag not me, us. Thank you, Dylan. Sophia Martinez, $1.99. Justice for Pamela Turner. Black Lives Matter. Email me the story so I could cover it. I'm not familiar with that. And also, we just got another new Status Coup member. Welcome to the Media Revolution. What is Iris? Thank you, Iris. We are now at 821 Status Coup members. So keep it coming. Statuscoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 a month. So real quickly, and we still got 712 viewers, so keep it coming. Share this live stream. We're going strong. I want to show you, Jen is working on a story about Elizabeth Warren and Hillary Clinton's campaign. Quite a lot of overlap. And I do find it interesting that in Hillary Clinton's grenade that she just launched at Bernie Sanders, reminder, the Hollywood Reporter who put out this story, Hillary Clinton's campaign and Hillary Clinton's people tell media organizations, this is when we want the story out. This interview she did with the Hollywood Reporter is to promote a documentary series that's not out till March on Hulu. So obviously they told the Hollywood Reporter, put it out now, a month and a half before the thing we're promoting comes out. So it's interesting because this interview just happens to come out after Elizabeth Warren stabbing Bernie Sanders in the front doesn't work out. This interview just happens to come out when Joe Biden is polling in some polls in third or fourth place in Iowa. So they ask her, Hollywood Reporter asked her, speaking of, Bernie allegedly told Senator Warren in 2018 that he didn't think a woman could win, a statement he vigorously denies. How do you digest that? I just wonder how Hillary Clinton digests that. Well, number one, Hillary says, I think that sentiment is untrue, which we should all say loudly. I mean, I did get more votes, both in the primary by about 4 million and in the general by about 3 million. I think that both the press and the public have to really hold everyone accountable for what they say and what their campaign says and does not. You know, even though we have no way of knowing if this was actually said and it's all hearsay, but I digress. That's particularly true with what's going on right now with the Bernie campaign having gone after Elizabeth with a very personal attack on her. Oh my God. Then this argument about whether or not or when he did or didn't say that a woman couldn't be elected, it's part of a pattern. If it were a one-off, you might say, okay, fine. But he said I was unqualified. I had a lot more experience than he did and got a lot more done than he had, but that was his attack on me. Well, first of all, he didn't say you were unqualified. That's just not true. Secondly, if you have more experience, Bernie was a mayor, he was a congressman, he was a senator, he was in office longer than you. You were a first lady, you were a senator, and then a secretary of state. A lot of experience. Many would say not such a good resume, but I don't know about how much more experience than you had than him. But what I find so interesting about all this, and thank you very much, Dylan, $5 in the super chat. Jen, come on more often. You're a tad prettier than Jordan. Don't worry, Jordan. You're still a magnificent beast. Why, thank you so much for calling me a magnificent beast. And Jen should definitely come on much more. We'll try to make that happen. So this is not pretty. I'm just reading straight from Jen's reporting here, and she's working on a story about this. But here's just a few bullets. Why is it that Elizabeth Warren stabbed Bernie Sanders in the front with the same exact type of nonsense attacks Hillary Clinton's campaign was famous for in 2016? Remember, Hillary Clinton's campaign invented the Bernie bro, fed it to the media, and the media just swallowed it in and spit it out. Her campaign manager, Roger Liu, was a state director for Hillary in 2008. Tracy Lewis, Warren's senior advisor, she was the primary states director for Hillary's campaign in 2016. Rich McDaniel, who was fired from the Warren campaign due to, quote, multiple complaints regarding inappropriate behavior, he was also worked on the Hillary Clinton campaign, as well as campaigns for Doug Jones, who beat that child molester and predator, Roy Moore. Iowa. Her Iowa state director, Janice Rottenberg, worked for Hillary Clinton's caucus campaign in 2016. Kane Miller, Warren national advisor, Hillary Clinton's campaign, 2016. Tova Yampolsky, Warren deputy policy director, Hillary's 2016 campaign. Juliana Amin, Warren Iowa organizing director, Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign. Rachel Caldwell, Warren, Iowa Deputy Organizing Director, Clinton's 2016 campaign. Chelsea Carrier, Warren, Iowa Deputy Organizing Director, Clinton Caucus campaign. New Hampshire, Warren, New Hampshire State Director, Hillary's Deputy Political Director and Trips Director, later Political Director during the general election. I mean, this is, by the way, not even the full list. Jen's working on more. I don't know. I'm not saying, just because you work for Hillary, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you're terrible. But Bernie Sanders' campaign isn't littered with people who worked for Hillary Clinton's campaign. And I just wonder, maybe it wasn't originally Elizabeth Warren's idea to desperately leak, her interpretation of a conversation with Bernie, but with so many Hillary Clinton alumni on your campaign, I would think maybe the suggestion came from some of those people that Jen is reporting on. I also find it interesting that, Elizabeth Warren, she's for Medicare for all. I'm with you. I'm with Bernie. Then she starts moonwalking away from Medicare for all. Who was telling her to do that? Who's in her ear telling her to go the neoliberal way? Could it be the army of Hillary Clinton staffers that she has hired on her campaign? I'm not saying they're all terrible. Maybe a lot of them made good strategic decisions in 2016. Maybe a lot of them disagreed with the campaign's decision not to go campaign in Wisconsin, to pull volunteers out of Michigan, to only go on black radio in Michigan a week before the election. Maybe they didn't agree with that. So we can't cast an entire blanket. They're not all losers. But you start to wonder, why is it that Elizabeth Warren is basically ripping out page after page after page in the Hillary Clinton neoliberal playbook? Jen, is it because her campaign is run by former Hillary Clinton staffers? So Jen's working on that story in addition to all the marketing tasks she's doing. So we'll have that out for you as soon as we can. Lickety split. And I want to remind you before I play the next interview, because this is a big show. We got Rania Khalek, independent journalist, coming up. I spoke with her earlier. A lot of censorship going on that you don't know about. I want to remind you we're now at 821 Status Coup members. We're at 821 Status Coup members. So please, please, please keep signing up. StatusCout.com/join. StatusCout.com/join. The more people that sign up, the more we could be in Iowa, New Hampshire, and other parts of the campaign. Without further ado, keep the super chats coming. I'll read them on the backside. Here is my interview with independent journalist Rania Khalek. Hey, it's Jordan Sheridan. Delighted to be joined by independent journalist Rania Khalek. Really great journalist on all things foreign policy, American empire. So of course she's not welcome in the Twitter fields of the woke back mountain, as I like to call it. Hillary Clinton and the rest. Before we get to the censorship you're still dealing with, obviously just broke that Glenn Greenwald of The Intercept, Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, has been charged in Brazil. I mean, it's preposterous, but with cyber crimes for, quote, his role in spreading of cell phone messages that have embarrassed prosecutors. This is from the New York Times. And of course, Brazil and Bolsonaro's government are charging him as being part of a criminal organization that hacked into the cell phones of several prosecutors and other public officials. If the audience doesn't know, he recently broke news that the prosecution, imprisonment of former President Lula was essentially a coordinated coup. And the judge was working with the prosecutors to trump up a fake evidence against Lula, who has now been released. So Glenn, who's been punched on a program in Brazil
literally
for his reporting, and his family has been under grave threat, is now being charged. You do pretty aggressive reporting yourself. What's your thoughts on what I think is a grave continuation of the threat of actual journalism?
I mean, what's happening to Glenn is really scary on a number of fronts because of what it means for journalism, what it means for Brazil, but also the coup that you just talked about was like a slow motion coup that took place with the backing of the U.S. The U.S. is close to the right wing in Brazil, and they wanted the left government out. And so in a way, what you have is a government that is still allied with America. The Brazilian government right now under Bolsonaro is closely allied with the U.S. that is cracking down on an American journalist. I would love to see if the U.S. government has anything to say about that. They probably don't, because Glenn Greenwald is someone who's considered an enemy probably by the U.S. government as well, given that he published leaks, with the Snowden leaks and stuff like that. So I think this is a really scary moment for journalism. I'm scared for Glenn Greenwald. I hope he takes all the precautions he needs to be in a place where the government is literally been after him since it came into office in a pretty aggressive and disgusting way. But also, I think it's also a good time to remind people that, the U.S. government right now is imprisoning Chelsea Manning again. Which in the imprisonment, by the way, by the UN has been considered a form of torture. And it's insane what's taking place with that. I mean, Edward Snowden still cannot return to the US. because of the sort of trial he might face. The U.S. is still trying to extradite Julian Assange, who's like slowly dying in the UK, which is participating with the U.S. and like keeping him in disgusting, terrible conditions, which the UN has also called a form of torture. So it's not just Brazil that's doing these kinds of things to journalists and whistleblowers. We have to look at this as like a trend we see sort of across the West right now. And so it is really, really scary. And Glenn Greenwald is on the front lines of that.
And I also think it's important to point out the U.S. has selective outrage at certain dictators, certain terrorists, or who they claim are terrorists, and others that, you know, are burning the Amazon down, which I would say is terrorism. If you're threatening the planet, that's pretty scary. Obviously, Bolsonaro, homophobic. He's brutal there.
Pro-rape.
Yeah.
Pretty pro-rape.
And now clearly going after journalists that expose corruption there. But, I mean, the U.S. government considers him an ally.
We don't see Congress jumping to, you know, write some sort of resolution condemning the government of Brazil right now, like we would see with an official enemy state. Meanwhile, you have a country like Venezuela where they paint the government as like some sort of horrifying dictatorship. You have a country like Bolivia where the U.S. just participated in overthrowing the democratically elected leader of that country for the crime of being a leftist. And saying it's under doing it under the guise of democracy promotion and putting in place actual fascists. Whereas in Brazil, you know, it's crazy what's happening right now across Latin America. It's a part of a really disgusting trend that started before Donald Trump, and unless Bernie Sanders becomes president, will likely continue after Trump.
So I want to move on to what's going on with you and other people within your network that are trying to report. I mean, it in this bizarre media culture we live in, the fact that the U.S. government just took out the commander in Iran is like it happened a year ago, even though it happened only 2-3 weeks ago. But you, Dan Cohen, who does reporting as part of Soapbox channel, was reporting on the truth about what the U.S. did, who Qasem Soleimani was, and essentially the fact that a lot of what Qasem Soleimani was doing was defending Iran after the U.S. invaded Iraq. And there's been further censorship of your channel, Dan's reporting. Can you kind of go into that?
Yeah, so Dan Cohen, who works for my colleague at Soapbox, presented a video about, it actually shouldn't have been that controversial. All he did was he went back and found mainstream media coverage of Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian commander that was assassinated. He found CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC coverage of him from like 4 years ago, in 2015, when the U.S. was helping to play a role fighting ISIS in the region, as well as Iran. So Iran and the U.S. were essentially on the same side for a few years fighting ISIS, not necessarily working together, but, you know, in parallel with one another. And so you had these media reports about Qasem Soleimani saying he's on the front lines of fighting ISIS. This guy is really effective at fighting ISIS. And what Dan did is he just showed these reports and he was like, like, how did you go from this, you know, interpretation or this portrayal of this guy 4 or 5 years ago to now he's the #1 terrorist in the world? He was just pointing out the contradiction. And that got censored from Facebook. First off of In the Now's channel, they deleted it from In the Now's channel and they demonetized In the Now on Facebook. They'll be demonetized for I think 60 to 90 days. And then a week later, they took it down from Soapbox's page on Facebook, saying it violates community standards. Of course, Facebook never offers any sort of actual criteria of what that means. But I mean, what obviously happened is before this video got deleted, Facebook and Instagram came out and said that they were going to intentionally delete and erase any content about Qasem Soleimani that is perceived to portray him in a positive light, because they wanted to be in compliance with U.S. sanctions. Now, nowhere under U.S. sanctions law does it say social media companies need to monitor the portrayal of Iran or any of its leaders. I mean, in fact, that would be against the First Amendment, because the U.S. government can't be dictating what isn't good speech. That's literally against the Constitution. So I don't know, Facebook or Our Instagram is like pulling this out of their ass. I'm not sure like where they're getting this from. I'm not sure if the US, I imagine what's probably happening is the US government is asking them to do this and they're complying, which is typically what happens with these social media giants. And so anyways, this video got taken down, and I think there needs to be more of an uproar about this because there's been other content taken down along with Venezuelan, Iranian, and Syrian accounts of real people being erased from social media outlets at the behest of the US government. Now, we're a country that prides ourselves on free speech. We have free speech advocates in this country who freak out whenever like the Iranian government or the Chinese government or any government that the US doesn't like censors anything in their own country. But I would argue that what's happening here is an even bigger threat to speech because you don't have this happening just in the US. Like when China and Iran do it, they do it domestically, which still isn't good, but it doesn't impact people around the world. When the US does it, to these big companies that are based in Silicon Valley, forcing them to take down content that challenges, whatever the State Department's narrative is, that's really scary because it affects the information flow around the world. Mm-hmm. That's much more scary and much more tyrannical.
And I think what people, if the audience doesn't know, like in the weeds, how it works, at least on YouTube, I'm sure Facebook too, when they demonetize something, it also immediately triggers them to suppress it. So it's kind of already, it's already suppressed, even if it's monetized. I mean, Facebook, YouTube has openly said, we are elevating, quote, authoritative content. YouTube actually YouTube actually said authoritative content, CNN and Fox News, which is ridiculous.
Fox News. Oh, even Fox News. That's interesting.
And they're, basically hiding, quote, borderline content. But when they demonetize it, so for example, if I publish a video on YouTube, a lot of times, it at first is monetized, the views are going up. Then I've gotten in the habit of looking back 15 minutes later, and I see that they've demonetized it. And all of a sudden, the views kind of get stuck or start going slowly. It's because they've demonetized it. So this is, and you said it best, I mean, because the American government is asking them. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg is having dinner in Washington with Trump, Republicans. He obviously, I mean, Chuck Schumer is famous for basically bending over for Facebook. And YouTube is owned by Google, and Google, obviously, fighting for contracts with the Pentagon, fighting for this, fighting for that. So it is very dangerous. Everybody focuses on the military industrial complex, of course, but big tech is part of that.
Absolutely. And I mean, you've experienced it too with your own outlet. And what this really is, Jordan, is it's an attack on alternative media, particularly with a left perspective. You see it. I'm not saying I want it to happen to the right. I actually do not advocate for this kind of stuff to happen to right-wing media as much as I might despise their viewpoints, because ultimately it ends up being used against us. I think this is like terrible. And I find it really unfortunate that a lot of times progressives get into this trap of promoting the idea of censoring the far right, not realizing that actually what's going to happen is these social media giants, they don't care about the far right. They care about the left. They care about suppressing anti-war views, suppressing views that, challenge the corporate control of our government, that challenge capitalism. These are that challenge police brutality. These are the kinds of views that are actually being suppressed. It's so dangerous what's taking place. And it basically ends up just force feeding everybody CNN, which is literally takes money from pharmaceutical companies for their advertisements, as well as weapons companies. Like, that's who gets to own the information. There was a point when social media was supposed to be a space where anyone could have a voice. And from starting your own outlet that that's not the case anymore. You have to fight to have a platform. And on top of fighting to have a platform, you have to compete against bigger outlets, bigger corporate outlets that are participating with these giant social media companies and big tech to make sure nobody sees you. Mm-hmm. It's insane.
And I'll give the audience, and maybe you don't know this, a little behind the scenes. So we, Status Coup, literally, we have to now buy ads just to get the exposure we would have gotten before the suppression. Buying ads basically just means like we have a video that's doing well, we try to put in an ad to get it seen to more people. It's not really like inauthentically inflating it. It's being suppressed, so we try to get it more exposure. YouTube, because of the whole Russiagate hysteria, has changed its algorithm again, and they are now denying our ads, quoting election advertising. I have been on the phone, no offense to folks in India, I have been on the phone, me and my partner, Jen, have been on the phone now going back 3 weeks, back and forth with YouTube. Look at our videos. We are covering campaigns, not doing election advertising. They deny, they deny, they deny. Then the guy, I think he let it slip, told me YouTube actually has a list. It's Google AdWords technically, has a list of outlets that they approve to buy ads
Oh my
that
God.
are news outlets. I wish I would have recorded the conversation. They have an outlet of lists they approve. So I've always said it's not just the algorithm. There are humans, like there's a switch, and there's humans with a list. So they have a list of outlets that
The
they
blacklist. That's a
yeah,
black. It's like a black.
they
Yeah.
have a list of outlets they approve that even though they're quote covering their news outlets that aren't election advertising, whereas certain ones that aren't on the list are election advertising. Twitter, who banned political advertising, they will allow quote unquote political advertising from news outlets that have like over 100,000 unique views to their website. Well, if you're a new outlet, you might not have 100,000 views to your outlet. So
Wow.
it's all one. I mean, George Carlin said it. It's one big club, and in this case, we're not in it.
No, no. I mean, I think if you were like promoting Joe Biden, you might be.
I'm sure.
Because that's the thing. At the end of the day, it's also about like which candidates you're perceived as being sympathetic to. I mean, this is such a rigged system. We don't have free speech. Like it's absurd to assume that in America we have free speech. We have heavily managed speech that's being managed by algorithms being created by big tech companies at the behest of the U.S. government. That's what we have. And it's such a farce. It's such a farce, the idea that we have a free media.
And I'd like to ask you also because I see, again, with Bernie moving up right now, it's kind of a coin toss in Iowa, but he's in pretty good position. You're seeing a lot of kind of like Russiagate. I guess you would call it 3.0 at this point. Like Joe Biden is like trying to muddy the waters and say, oh, we're doctoring videos, which is kind of like, I don't know if he even knows what deepfake is, but to me, he's trying to muddy the waters and make it seem like a legitimate clip from his own speeches is like a doctored or deepfake video. You have outlets like the New York Times now saying Russia has hacked Burisma with the same flimsy evidence, citing the same third-party intelligence firms, which are basically, if something comes out negative about Joe Biden's son, the oil company he was on the board of, they're just going to say, I mean, you have journalists literally saying, do not report on this. You are aiding the Russians.
Yeah.
It seems like they're just basically throwing a protective shield around Joe Biden and establishment candidates before anything comes out.
Yeah, and I mean, I think with Joe Biden, it hasn't really worked. I think that like it's what's been really interesting is despite the media bias against Sanders, you still see him rising in the polls, whereas these people who have the protective shields around them, Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden, especially Joe Biden, they've remained weak candidates who are losing steam. I think that's really interesting, and it just demonstrates how hungry even Democratic primary voters, at least a significant chunk of them are, for Bernie Sanders style stuff, for something different, for anti-establishment, sort of populism. But despite that, I think like they're going to keep trying to do this. And you see it repeatedly, like with CNN collaborating last week with the Democratic debate. God, it feels like it was a year ago now. But last week with the Democratic debate, I mean, CNN literally collaborated with the Warren campaign to smear Bernie Sanders. And it backfired like really dramatically. Even CNN's own people were like, come on, you guys, this is a bit much, So with the Sanders case, it's like Sanders has enough momentum around him that I don't know if it's going to work with him. But I do think that people around the Sanders campaign and then people who are supportive of Bernie Sanders should be paying attention to what's going on with media outlets like yours and mine, because ultimately all of this crap is going to be turned on him. They're going to start saying that anyone who promotes Sanders is helping the Russian government. I think some people have already said that. That's going to become more prevalent, especially now that it's becoming clear that he's a real contender here and might win. I think you're going to see suppression of pro-Bernie Sanders media. Like a lot of media that's pro-Bernie Sanders isn't mainstream media. A lot of it's alternative outlets like the one that you founded, and like others like the Gray Zone. And even, I mean, I don't know if you were at TYT before. I mean, TYT is sort of like in a gray area. They're almost mainstream. They're not, but they're not. So I don't know. It could even affect them. And they're really pro Bernie Sanders. So I think that people really need to care when this stuff is happening to like smaller outlets like ours, because eventually it's going to be used against Bernie Sanders.
Mm-hmm. And I also think, listen, not that I'm not taking credit for it or you're taking credit for it, but I think Bernie Sanders' campaign and Tulsi Gabbard's campaign and kind of these anti-establishment campaigns, these door knockers who are informing, first-time voters or non-voters, they watch us. They get information. Yeah. They get information not just on Bernie Sanders, but about oligarchy, plutocracy, income inequality, imperialism from us. So they're not just like reading the script the Bernie or the Tulsi campaign give them. They are informed because they watch alternative outlets, whatever it is. So not that like we're directly, it's not your job to elect Bernie, it's not my job to, but it is our job to inform people and counter the corporate propaganda. So if this suppression continues, it only harms the very people on the ground trying to reach the people that don't live and breathe this, that are working 3 jobs. But those are the people you need to come out to and elect like a Bernie Sanders. So it's all very critical. Last question. What about Queen Hillary and her screaming today? It's really funny because if any progressive dare to say, oh, I don't know if I'm going to endorse the Democratic nominee. Oh my God, the arrows that would be out. But Hillary just said it, and there's just not even crickets from the same journalist.
I mean, she's saying that nobody likes Bernie Sanders, and I just say like, yeah, nobody likes Bernie Sanders, because the only people and I'm talking about Hillary Clinton, the only people she knows are other people who are rich like her. Like, those are the people she's surrounded with. She's surrounded with very comfortable, wealthy people who all have like the same ideology, who all like live in this bubble where they don't interact with the rest of the country or know what any other regular people have to deal with. They don't know what it's like to have student debt. They don't know what it's like to have 2 or 3 jobs. They don't know what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck. They certainly have no idea what it's like to be like 65 and have no retirement savings, be in debt and be driving Uber. I mean, people like that all the time. I'm always stunned when I visit the US and I see like 60 and 70-year-olds driving Uber. That blows my mind. In a country as rich as America, that people can't, enjoy their later years in life. That's insane. Hillary Clinton doesn't know people like that. So of course she would think nobody likes Bernie Sanders or cares what he has to say. Honestly, at this point, Hillary Clinton, like, I don't know why anybody cares what she says. I feel like after you lose to someone like Donald Trump, even though she kind of officially won, she knew that we had this crazy electoral system that sucks and is archaic. And after like knowing how you can win against a clown and somebody who's so despised and still losing, like, nobody should care what you have to say about any candidate right now. Her opinion should mean nothing.
And I'd also like to ask you, I'm obviously not a woman, but I find the whole like woke thing, these same Hillary Clinton supporters that have been screaming that she lost because of sexism. I mean, I covered the campaign. I think sexism in politics exists. I don't think it's why she lost. Just like racism exists. I think some of Trump's supporters are racist. It's not why he won, but it's not why he won. But Bernie Sanders was asked a question after Elizabeth Warren stabbed him in the front. But I think it was NPR. Like, do you think sexism is a thing in politics? And he said yes. And they're attacking him. He's agreeing with what you've been screaming about, but they're attacking him. That's why it just seems so intellectually dishonest that they just kind of cloud every loss, whether it's Hillary losing because of sexism or Trump won because of racism. But when Bernie says the same thing you've been saying, they attack him.
It's like this visceral hatred of Bernie Sanders that like people made it, I think, personal in 2016. And they just have this visceral hatred. There is literally nothing he can say that these people would agree with, even if it's exactly what they believe, because they just hate him. Like it's like that woman who went on MSNBC and said, Bernie Sanders makes my skin crawl. Mm-hmm. That sentiment among the 2016 Hillary supporters who literally only supported Hillary Clinton because they wanted a woman in office, or that was like the main reason why. Those people think that she was robbed and it's Bernie Sanders' fault, and they're never going to like him. The problem is that those people have the biggest voice in media. Right. And so they end up acting as, it ends up, being this perception of, oh, women don't, women think Bernie Sanders is sexist. But like, I'm a woman and I don't think Bernie Sanders is sexist. And I'm very supportive of Bernie Sanders and the policies he's promoting. Yet somehow like I become erased because I'm not the right kind of woman.
Right.
I'm not like, but the women, I'm like the woman in me is like erased and I just become another white bro.
Right.
I'm just a white Bernie bro.
Oh, boy. Where could people find your work?
You can follow me at Rania Khalek on Twitter, at my website, raniakhalek.com. And you can follow Soapbox on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube.
Cool. Thank you for taking the time, letting us know what's going on, and we'll definitely be keeping in touch.
Great to be on with you. Thanks again, Jordan.
Thanks. Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you. That was Rania Khalek. She's an independent journalist, does great work. You can follow her on Twitter at Rania Khalek. She does videos from the Soapbox, I believe it's called. So thank you to Rania. We'll definitely do more with her because you don't really hear this kind of point of view in corporate outlets. She's super smart, super informed, particularly on foreign policy. They won't have her on. I wonder why. And you want to talk about sexism? She has gotten attacked on Twitter and other places. You don't have to agree with her views on foreign policy, imperialism, and this and that. How about have a debate about it instead of attacking her, censoring her? Because she's been censored on Facebook as well, and not just Dan Cohen. And I think all of us need to stand together because whether it's me, whether it's her, whether it's Status Coup, we're all getting suppressed here. We're all getting screwed here. Demonetized. So thank you, Rania, for joining us. While we were playing that interview, we got two new Status Coup members. Welcome to the party, Iris. Welcome, new Status Coup member, Randy. We are now at 822 Status Coup members. We are trying to get, it's going to be tough, trying to get to 900 by the end of this month. Can we do it? A lot of that depends on you. If you're not a member, consider signing up for as low as $5 a month. You get great bonus content. We're doing another members-only call next week, Jen and I. A lot of fun, the last members call we had. I'm going to do some bonus content for members this week. I will be going into the field very soon into New Hampshire, so we'll do bonus content there for our members. Marcus is in Iowa now. He's going to be doing more bonus content just for members. And of course, you get to support in the field reporting that, frankly, I don't see a lot of other places doing. We actually have to add Iowa to that map. That's where we've been. We got a lot more places to go. Sign up, statuscoup.com/join. And if you are already a member, spread the word. Sharing is caring. Tell other people. Check us out, statuscoup.com/join. No funding from banks, no funding from fossil fuel companies, no funding from big pharma, big real estate, Silicon Valley, or any of the other sleaze funding the rest of the media. And if you missed it, in the beginning of the show, I told you we actually have a kind viewer, I don't know if he wants us to name him, so I'm not going to, who is willing to sponsor 10 new members at $5 a month. So we already have started to see some of you emailing us that you want to be one of the lucky 10. I said first come, first serve. I don't know if we have, Jen. I don't think 10 have emailed us yet. I've seen at least 5 or 6. But if you, first come, first serve, so if you want to get some of those member slots, this fine gentleman is paying for it. Email us info@statuscoup.com. That's info@statuscoup.com. Become a member for as low as $5 a month. And I want to end our show today. For those of you who have already seen this, my bad. But for those of you who haven't, we do have Marcus in the field. He's doing great work that, frankly, I don't see any other, definitely no corporate outlets are doing. And frankly, I don't see any independent outlets doing much of this either. So let me show you a recent interview Marcus did. The screen's going to go black because I didn't get a chance to load it. But shows you what we're up against as far as generally older establishment voters and how very, very out of touch these folks are. And good on Marcus to push back. Here we go.
Marcus Ely here for Status Coup, and I'm here with David Boyd. And what brought you out to see all of the candidates today?
Well, I'm still trying to decide who I'm going to caucus for. And so this is another opportunity to hear them, specifically in areas that I have a real concern about in terms of social justice and independent and impartial courts.
So, what particular candidates are like your front runners right now?
Probably Senator Klobuchar, Vice President Biden, and Buttigieg probably are my top three at the moment.
Okay, so you consider yourself more of like a centrist Democrat then?
I would consider myself more of a centrist Democrat, yes.
All right. So what in specific policy wise do you like about the centrists that you don't like about that you don't agree with, rather I should say, with the progressives on?
Well, I think in addition to be a centrist Democrat, I'm also looking for someone that I have the most confidence in terms of defeating President Trump in November. And I believe those are the candidates that have the best chance of bringing over independents like I was, as well as Republicans or former Republicans that have now become independents. They have the best chance of getting them out and voting for them in November.
So you think that that's the strategy the Democrats should be following? Because a lot of people would say the other strategy would be, or a lot of strategists have said the other strategy or more effective strategy would be to go for the plurality of people in America that do not vote currently. Because if you look at the numbers in 2016, based on Hillary Clinton and Trump, if electoral votes counted for people that didn't vote, Hillary would have got 22 or 23 electoral votes. Trump would have got 18 electoral votes, and the 400 and something left would have all went to nobody as president because the plurality of people did not vote.
And that's why I believe that the people that I'm looking at primarily will help bring some of those people to the poll to vote.
So you think that the folks that are centrists are going to win the people over instead of the progressives? Well, the reason I say that is because Bernie Sanders is the farthest left candidate, and he's brought in more people into this process, meaning like when he started his run, he had 1 million volunteers, and most of those people were not active in politics beforehand. So like the data is showing that like he brought in all these people already, and that's where he's focused this campaign at.
Well, and I think a lot of those people are still left over from 2016. Mm-hmm. I don't know that they're all really new. And I just, I believe that I guess I don't want to see, I'm old enough to remember 1972 and George McGovern. And you could make the same argument in 1972, and we know what the result of that election was. It was a landslide for Richard Nixon.
Yeah. In 1972, there was corporate media that pumped out the same message, and there was no social media counter message to that, though.
That's true too. Yeah, but anyway, that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, definitely no. It's important that everybody hears all sides of everything. That's why I come out here as somebody that's a progressive in progressive media, talking to folks like you. So what message do you have as somebody that's more of a moderate Democrat to progressives in general right now during the primary? Not looking forward to the election, no talk of unity, because that's like unity, we can get to that after the convention. But right now, during the primary, when we're trying to hash out our differences and figure out which candidate's the best, what do you...
I don't think you can do that so much, because I think that the most important issue, if you asked me what the most important issue was for me, my answer to that question would be defeating President Trump. And so I think you really have to... talk about who do you think best has that opportunity to beat President Trump in November. And I think you have to talk about that now. If you don't, I think, I think it's you can win the battle and lose the war.
That's very.
I'm more concerned about winning the war as opposed to the battle.
So then I guess the data would say you'd have to go with Bernie Sanders because he's beat him in every poll since 2015 before the man was president.
The good news is that there are many candidates that
Who haven't beat him in every poll since 2015.
in the polls have defeated, or at least are considered to be leading him. So I mean, I think there's a lot to choose from.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot to choose from, and one thing I agree with you, and I think a lot of progressives agree with you on, is that sure, anybody's better than Donald Trump, but where a lot of progressives will diverge with you on in your point is they will say, okay, that's great that Donald Trump's a poop sandwich. I don't want to eat a poop sandwich. But don't offer me ramen noodles when I have hypertension and there's a perfectly good salad right there. I'd like the salad. The salad's the healthy choice. Can I have the healthy choice instead of the ramen noodles and say, no, that's not a poop sandwich. Don't eat the poop sandwich. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's how progressives feel. They're like, there's clearly a healthy choice here. And you're telling me, no, but this is something to eat. Just go with the something to eat. Take your marginal little bit here and there. And they're like, no, Australia's on fire. The smoke is in Chile. You know what I mean? This is how progressives feel. This is the best. And a lot of times, folks get shouted down and told, "No, it's okay. The smart people in the room will figure this out. They'll handle it. We got this." And it's just, they get frustrated. And I talk to them all the time, and they literally, the number one comment is, "How does Marcus talk to these people all the time without getting in a full rage mode?" And it's like, no, dude. I want to listen to folks like you. I genuinely enjoy having these conversations. But at the same time, there's a lot of people that are suffering from these things, and they turn around and get called Bernie bros, and they turn around and get really frustrated. And it's like, okay, that's great. We have a lot of people that are doing fine and doing really well, but there are 30,000 people a year dying from these healthcare issues. There are people that work at Walmart and can't make ends meet. There are people that work at McDonald's, can't make ends meet. There are people in Flint, Michigan, still don't have clean water. And we look again and again and again, and the people that are on the forefront of these issues support one candidate, and that's Bernie Sanders. And then they get turned around and get yelled at and get told they're Bernie bros because they're raging and they're yelling on Twitter. And it's like, yeah, of course they're raging. They're getting shitted on. Excuse my French. You know what I mean? But that's like, of course these people are like, of course they're raging and they're mad. Like this system has completely ignored them, and they finally raise up and say something, and then folks just let the adults handle it. Like, how, you know what I mean? What do you say to that?
Well, what I say to that is, I don't have that experience. So
you don't have that experience. So
I don't
listen to those folks that have that experience, though.
No. Well, but I'm not saying not to listen to them. Okay, but I don't have that experience of having people put down anybody who supports, Sanders or Warren or any of the other candidates that are running. I don't have that experience. So
it's tough. It's crazy that you don't have that experience, because if we look all over the media and all over social media, like there's always talk of Bernie bros, or there's always talk of these people that
show I'm out of touch.
Yeah, and that's in the case of this, that's a good thing, I guess.
Oh well, but and
we found the one case when being out of touch is good.
Yeah.
We found an out of touch moderate, and it's a good thing.
But people that I talk to that are either Republicans or independents, I'm thinking about them and how do we get them not only to the polls but to vote and to help move President Trump out of the White House. And that's still going to become, and regardless of anybody's, whoever it is. I mean, if Senator Sanders is a candidate that is eventually nominated, I'll be right there for Senator Sanders. It for me, like I said at the beginning, my primary goal is finding someone who actually will win the election. That's what's key.
Another 4 years of Trump probably kills us all.
And that's state by state, because I think we all agree and know that in November, whoever the candidate is for the Democrats will actually win the popular vote. There's no doubt in my mind right now that whoever is the Democratic nominee will win the popular vote again. The question is, and where the polls really matter, are in those states where Trump won that we need to win back.
You just watched Status Coup's In the Field coverage with me live on the ground from Iowa. We can't do this without your support, so make sure to like, share, subscribe, and become a member at statuscoup.com.
That was Marcus Ely for us in Iowa. And tell you the truth, damn, I think that was one of Marcus's best interviews because, with these older establishment types, you don't want to clobber them over the head, but you want to basically point out that they are voting against their own interests and voting against their own stated goal, which is to defeat Donald Trump. And I think Marcus is really getting good at being aggressive while also not alienating the person he's interviewing to not want to talk to you, because it's more valuable to be aggressive and respectful, but look, by being aggressive yet, professional and respectful, you're basically getting him to hang himself. I guess I'm out of touch. That's not my experience. He's really got that guy to say what's very evident about older voters. And it's not all older voters, and we don't want to say that they're all bad, but a lot of these people are very, very out of touch. And part of why they're out of touch is because of the CNN, because of the New York Times. I was going to get into the New York Times endorsement today, but this show's gone on long enough, so I'll get into it tomorrow. But they are out of touch because they don't really have any connection to what's truly going on. It's not that all older establishment people, I'm sure some of them are struggling economically and might not have it so easy. But most of them are doing just fine. They graduated college long before the 2008 financial crash. When they went to college, it wasn't, immediately $100,000 student loan debt bill. When they were coming up, the planet wasn't on fire. So they're very out of touch with what's going on right now. So, great job by Marcus. Keep it coming, folks. We just got another new member, so we're now at 823 new Status Coup members. Welcome to the party, new Status Coup member Brian. Our goal for the end of this month, so we got to work quick, is to get to 900. So if there are people on the fence, statuscoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 a month. This is how we grow. I'll be hitting New Hampshire soon for that primary. Marcus is in Iowa, and then we're going to try to cover as much as the campaign that we can with the funding that we got. We want to get, obviously that bar is, we're not going to stop once we hit 1,000, but that's our short-term goal, to hit 1,000 members on our website, and then from there we will keep going. And that's the beautiful thing about Status Coup. We do not have a cap on how far we could grow. Outlets that are corporately funded, outlets that their business model is primarily based on advertisers and meeting quotas for advertisers, there's a cap on how much you could grow. But when you're growing from the grassroots, like a political campaign, when you're growing from the grassroots at small dollar memberships, $5 a month, we have $10 plans, $20 plans. When you grow from the bottom up, I don't want to steal from Bernie, but when you grow from the bottom up, you really, really have no cap. We could grow as far as people take us, and as we grow and get funding through our members, we're able to advertise more, which allows us to reach more people. So it's very cyclical. Consider signing up. It makes a huge, huge difference. Let me read any super chats that I missed. Hold on. Okay. John MBWA, $10 in the super chat. What if Bernie is playing the long game? What if Bernie is playing the long game? Don't be a bull in a china shop. Tough being Bernie. Hold on. Hold on, I'm reading a super chat. What if Bernie is playing?
That's all I was calling about. Bye.
Okay. What if Bernie is playing the long game? Don't be a bull in a china shop. Tough being Bernie. Trump didn't have superdelegates to worry about or a possible well-orchestrated contested convention. John, with all due respect, there is no long game. Iowa's in less than 2 weeks. Then it's New Hampshire. Then it's Nevada. Then it's South Carolina. So if he doesn't, I think he needs to win Iowa. I'm just going to be honest. I think it would be very, very, not fatal, but I think it would be very, very, it would be a lot harder for him if he doesn't win Iowa. Because I think if he wins Iowa, he's going to win New Hampshire if he wins Iowa. Because there's momentum from that. He won New Hampshire convincingly in 2016. If he wins Iowa and New Hampshire, then you're talking about potentially winning Nevada. So yes, you could worry about how will it affect the convention, all these things, but you got to win first and then worry about those things second. And I just think apologizing and bowing down to Joe Biden and all these things it looks weak. And say what you want about Trump, people liked that he did not look weak and he just called them corrupt. So I think, I just don't agree with that sentiment. Seth, $45 in the super chat. Always coming through for us, Seth Peterson. Status Coup is the best independent reporting team in the world. I agree. And your continued support is helping us grow. So thank you so much, Seth. We really appreciate every super chat you're giving us. High-risk win, $2. Biden this week. Drunk driving shouldn't be a felony. Did he say that? If he said that, that's just bonkers. Dylan Patton, $2. Show idea, phone bank for Bernie and live stream it. I'm not going to do that. I love Bernie, but we're not we can't work for his campaign. We are journalists. So, we might cover some of the canvassing that goes on for Bernie, but we're not going to phone bank for him. Dylan, Jen, come on more often. Oh, I read that one. Thank you. Did I miss any? Hello, Soul 2. Thanks for all you do, Jordan. Real progressives appreciate it. Thank you. I think I got everybody. I think. Jen, did I miss any? Text me if I missed any. So, for those of you that missed the beginning of the show, we're going to try coming a little bit earlier than normal. Today we started at 4:30 Eastern. That's 1:30 Pacific. We might tinker and do 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific. So we'll tomorrow be on the lookout for 4 o'clock Eastern. It's hard because we're doing stuff during the day that is not for the live stream, for the business, research, reporting. But we want to try going earlier to avoid our channel going live while other massively bigger channels are live, which has kind of been feeding in a little bit to our viewership. So we will definitely be live tomorrow. Remember, you can support us in many different ways. We're trying to grow our text list. So you could text 474747, type in Coup, C-O-U-P, and you'll get added to our text list. This helps us get around YouTube suppression. And we're also very, very much trying to grow our Instagram, which we don't talk about much, but this is another big way we could grow. We just passed 1,000 followers on Instagram. We haven't been pushing Instagram as much, but we're really going to try to push it. So if you are on Instagram, definitely sign up. Follow us on Instagram. Jen explained earlier in the show that we're going to be doing some extra bonus stuff on Instagram. So follow us there. There's a huge untapped progressive audience that we want to reach on Instagram. I believe we are, Jen, what's the link? Instagram.com/statuscoup, I think. Shows you what I know. That's Instagram.com/status. Is that our address? I should probably know our address before I tease it. I think that's it. There it is. Instagram.com/statuscoup. And thank you for watching. We will see you tomorrow. Remember, we're posting videos as we go. So more videos will be posted on the channel that you haven't seen yet. And I will see you tomorrow. Peace, well, be progressive. Good night.